Welcome to another exciting episode of the Insurance Untangled Podcast. My name is Ben Tuine, and I'm one of the co-hosts of this podcast. We built this podcast and dedicated it towards helping practices that are tangled up with insurance. We talk about things that help practices take more control, create a bigger, better, and brighter future for you, your patients, and of course, your team members. So today, it's just going to be Naren and I. Today, I'm going to be interviewing Naren. Naren, how's it going?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much, Ben. Really appreciate the topic we're going to be talking about today, and I think it's a fun topic.
Yeah, I do too. And of course, we excuse Jordan. Jordan is not feeling well today, so hopefully he'll join us on the next series of episodes. So Naren, today we're going to talk about, of course, you being the marketing expert. There's always something to be said about learning from our clients, right? Finding ways to improve things, but also just, looking at things from client perspective, that kind of helps drives us with changes in the way that we serve dentists. So what we're going to talk about today is the biggest lessons that you've learned from your dental clients. The first question I have is, successful practice owners know a few things that are critical to their success. They're good at focusing on them. Good practice owners are really good at focusing on things that are critical to their success. In your experience, Naren, and working with hundreds of dental practice owners, what do you think those focuses are for these successful dentists?
Absolutely. I think, so that this podcast becomes effective, I'm only going to focus on three things. And I really think if you can master these three things and you really live by these three things on a day-to-day, week-to-week, month-to-month basis, you're going to be successful. And my experience comes from, having worked with dental practices going back to 2008. So, close to 16 years or more than 16 years. I think my very first dental practice, I started working with them in 2007. But anyways, when you look at the full year, it was 2008. So it was somewhere in the middle of 2007 is when I first started working with a dentist who said, hey, you are crushing SEO. In Chicago, there are 10,000 dentists that I'm competing with. Can you help me get on page one and beat out all these 10,000 other dentists? And I'm like, yeah, sure, we can do that. And then one of the things I started noticing right from the start, even with that very first dentist, is the best ones have some attributes. And today I'm going to talk about those attributes. The very first attribute is they're masters of delegation. For example, that dentist that I was talking about who literally helped us found Equa because he became our very first client. And to be honest, he's the one who pitched me on this idea of like, hey, why don't you do SEO for dental practices? Because if you can beat Amazon in SEO, you should be able to beat 10,000 of the dentists. Is they realize they can't do it all. So they try to encourage and work with others who have a passion with something they need. But how do we do it in a way where it's a win-win? So the doctor who's spending time with me, encouraging me to really master SEO and really master, getting new patients through digital marketing, realizes me doing well means he's doing well, right? Because he now has an unlimited supply of patients at a fraction of the cost of what his competition is paying for with Google Ads and stuff. So they tend to focus on delegation. They tend to, like I've heard of other stories where some doctors would encourage the people who work for them, maybe an assistant, to become a hygienist or even become a dentist. So they would support them. They would, really, really encourage them, like see something in them, believe in them, and really support them. So they really believe in this delegation and helping others grow. And they do it from a heart of like, win-win, right? It's meaning they're like, okay, if I can help this person succeed, you know what? That's good because in the long term, I'm going to be better off too. So they really master delegation. The second point I want to make about delegation is, so anyway, so let me just talk about the 3 points and then we'll dive into each one. The second point I want to talk about is they are win-win people, meaning they're not win-lose people, nor are they lose-lose people. So lose-lose is like, we blame each other, we point fingers, and we go around in circles blaming each other, right? That's lose-lose. That's unfortunately majority of the people we see in the world, right? It's always somebody else's fault and, like that kind of a, mindset. I'm not saying majority, but a significant number of people have this lose-lose mentality. They have kind of given up. They're like, things are the way they are. It is what it is. I'm just supposed to survive. They just have this survival mentality and, let me just get through one more day. Let me just pay the bill one more day. And I think they've kind of given up. So they're the ones I'm calling lose-lose. Win-lose is like, I want to win, but really I don't care about the other people. And actually, I like it if they lose, because it gives me a sense of satisfaction that they're losing. So that's the second type of people. And of course, we don't want lose-lose or win-lose. Like Stephen Covey talked about in his book, the game-changing book for many of us who have built successful businesses and successful, institutions. It's this idea of win-win. So how do you lift others up and at the same time, you succeed as well? So the idea that we live in a limited world where if I have some resource, you don't have it, meaning scarcity mindset, right? That's the win-lose people. And then the win-win people are abundance mindset. The world is, has infinite potential. I can win and you can win and we can make the world bigger, right? If you think about it, the economy of the world today versus the economy of the world 100 years ago, it's much bigger. That means we created new things. We created new things we didn't even know we need or want or have. So there's no limit to how far we can go. Today we are imagining about becoming a multi-planetary species. And of course, there are some people who are driving that, right? So there's no limit to how far humans can go. Like you can continue to grow, continue to make tomorrow better. And the last attribute of these successful practice owners is they focus on growth. They are growth minded, meaning they're growing as individuals, they're learning, they're growing as people. So if they have any limiting beliefs, limiting ideas, whether it's, win-lose or lose-win, any of those limiting things, they're willing to let it go. They're willing to replace it with the mindset that is that is a good mindset for them. In the case of replacing win-lose with win-win. So they're always growing. Of course, we are not all grown with all the answers, we are not all born with all the answers on day one. Rather, we grow into it. So they continue to grow. So they're growing through learning. They're growing by looking at other people who are, who they can emulate. And also, they're growing their practices. Like they want every year to be their best year yet. They're not happy when this year is same as last year, or this year is a little worse than last year. So they set targets. They're goal oriented. They say, okay, this year I'm going to grow 10%, 20%. And then they think about how I'm going to do it. What's key for my success? And they go after it. They don't talk about problems and excuses and, oh, well, I have this issue and that issue. And yeah, poor me. That they don't have those mindsets. They're like, I can do anything. I'm going to make this year better for me, my team, my family, my patients than it was last year. I'm going to figure out how do I do that, and then they go do it, and they just do it year after year after year after year. So their life is something they look forward to, as opposed to something that it's like, oh man, I wish it was Friday. Like I hate going to work and so forth.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, Naren. Very good attributes, positive attributes, and just in a person in general, right? Looking at things on a positive note. So I like what you talked about delegation. When you think about masters of delegation, what I think about, is an organizational structure where everybody knows their roles, right? Where not one person is creating a bottleneck for the growth of the company. Can you explain and expound on your thoughts of this whole concept of being a master delegator?
Yeah, most of us are born technicians, right? Meaning, we start out as technicians. You are a dentist, you know how to take care of oral health. So you have some skills, you go to school, you master it, and you come out. And then you realize you could answer the phone, but maybe you can get somebody else to answer the phone, right? Because answering the phone may not be the best use of your time, given what you can do with it. Because if you're answering the phone, maybe you're getting paid $15 an hour or $20 an hour, as opposed to when you're doing high value services as a dentist, you might get paid $1,000, $2,000 an hour, right? So you start realizing that for you to grow, you need others, and you need others who love what they do, not who are different from you. So the masters of delegation realize that every successful business that is not dependent on them has other people who are exceptionally good at what they do. So they are proactive. They think about, okay, what does ideal look like 5 years from now? And then they realize they can't get to the 5-year mark today because they don't have the finances, they don't have the capabilities, meaning for you to lead a team of amazing people, you have to be an amazing leader. You have to be as good, if not better than them as a leader, right? So you can't go from, I've never led anybody, I've never managed anybody, to having the best team in the world with 20 people, right? You don't have the money to do it. You don't have the skills to do it. So they're very good at, realizing that they have to continue to grow and they have to continue to delegate. So they're always thinking, okay, 2 years out, I think that's a sweet spot. What should my org chart look like, versus where it is today? And then they're very, very crystal clear, because 2 years is a reasonable time frame, something that you can wrap your hands around. Okay, 2 years out, like right now, I have somebody who's acting as a front desk manager. Maybe I need a dedicated front desk manager. These are the duties of that person. These are the things they have to master. They have to be able to find the right people to work in the front desk and answer calls. They have to be able to train these people. They have to be able to monitor these people. Are they doing a good job? So they're very, very crystal clear on where they want to be in terms of these roles. And then they define it, and then they work with that person to help them get there. So once you define, okay, this is where you are, this is where I want you to be 6 months from now, this is where I want you to be 12 months from now, 2 years from now, then they work with that person to help them get there. Now, also, just like you have internal people, these are your employees, you also have partners, right? You don't need to hire a full-time accountant. You don't need to hire a full-time marketing person. You don't need to hire a full-time lawyer. But are you finding the right partner? Someone who has the same vision as you for your practice with regards to their area. So, for example, if your vision for marketing is, I want the best patients at the lowest cost, and how do I do that? And how do I make every year my best year yet with regards to new patients? Then find somebody who has the same vision, and then understand how they think, understand if the way they think and the way you think is compatible. And more importantly, understand, is that way of thinking going to help you achieve your targets, right? Or your goals? Like, just because you like somebody, let's say you like your accountant, but let's say he's not using cloud accounting. He's asking you to send papers and paper receipts, and he takes 6 months to reconcile your books every year. Even though you like him as a person, he's not the kind of person you need to build the organization you want to build. So be very crystal clear on what you want, and then see if that person or that partner, whether it's internal or external, is able to fulfill that. And then if it's an internal partner, of course, you have to help them get there too. Unless, of course, you are willing to pay extra bucks to get somebody with that kind of experience from the outside. But as a startup, you may not be able to do that. So sometimes once you clearly define where you want a certain person or certain role to be, you can work with them to help them get there. So that's kind of the way I think about delegation. And I'll tell you the opposite of delegation. I know if a practice owner has gone through several office managers, have gone through several team members, there's a lot of turnover. I know that practice is going to struggle. Doesn't matter how good we are with marketing. It's going to be like 2 steps forward, 2 steps back, 2 steps forward, 2 steps back. Because unfortunately, you can't do great things when you don't have the right people who are motivated and who love being there. Because it's like pulling teeth, right? I mean, I'm using that terminology. I mean, it's not fun, right? It's just painful and nobody likes it. So hopefully we never have to get to the situation we have to pull teeth, right? Hopefully you can, not ever get there. So you take care of your overhead. That's number one. Number two is, you are proactive in taking care of issues when they show up early. So mastering delegation, mastering this culture of helping others support you, and continuing to get better at it. So if you're running a $5 million practice, the skills you need and how you think about delegation will be very different from when you're running $1 million practice. So it's not like, oh, I have mastered delegation, I'm done. You have to keep going. You have to keep getting better at mastering delegation.
Yeah, I remember when I first started in dentistry, at an executive level position, I was getting assignments from other executives. And these other executives were trying to teach me the art of delegation. But one of them assigned me, this other executive assigned me to edit like personal videos of him recording his daughter doing soccer and all that. And I was supposed to put music and put it on YouTube in a private. And I was like, I don't know, this is not why I was hired. But it's like, this is personal stuff. This is BS. So there's one thing that you mentioned about, when business owners have high turnover of staffing, I guess it becomes a question of, if you're a big delegator, to me, that experience kind of soured my taste towards that particular person. It's like, you are using me on company payroll for something personal, which is not part of why this business is paying me, right? I was like, that's kind of inappropriate, right? But the other part is, I remember when I was thrown into my position as the VP of Payer Relations, Insurance Relations, the very first day, they kind of threw me into it. Like, the receptionist said, hey, I got Delta Dental on the phone, And Delta, of course, I've never dealt with insurance companies for dental. I didn't know the language. I was still in training, but they threw me into it. And I felt like I didn't have the right support system, right? I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no training. I have no structure, right? So I like what you're saying is that, the art of delegation is, putting the right people in the right seat, then also having, good training and a support system. You too often business owners throw people into positions without training, and then all of a sudden that person leaves, right? And now we spend more money trying to find somebody in lost opportunity because we can't keep those tasks, current, right? So thanks for sharing that, Naren. That kind of opened up a can of worms in my mind about, delegation.
I know these are not simple
So
answers. I'm
I
giving you three things like
know.
delegation, growth mindset, and win-win. But these are like oceans, right? Each is like one is the
Yeah.
Indian Ocean, one is the Atlantic Ocean, and one is
Yeah.
the Pacific Ocean.
They're fun to
You can
talk
go deep.
about.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let's look at the second attribute that you mentioned. Successful practice owners have this win-win mindset, right?
Yeah.
So the two-part question, explain that win-win mindset. And then secondly, what are some of the characteristics of people that have that win-win mindset?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I don't know where this comes from, but I think our kids are unfortunately ingrained in this idea of competition.
Mhm.
Remember what the British did as far as everything is concerned. They wanted to create human robots, right? So there's clear, so you are an accountant, you are a human robot who can do math and, keep track of numbers for the businesses they needed as they invaded other countries. You are a teacher who's a human robot who can take kids through a 12-year journey of, learning all the basics. And then, so they created all these institutions, and inside the institution, they created human robots who could do one thing really, really well. And it
Mhm.
worked because, as we grew as a population, we went from hundreds of millions in the people in the world to now 8 billion people. It allowed us to scale and allowed us to create prosperity because, if I can do things that 10,000 people would do, then of course, as the person who created that, let's say you're an entrepreneur, like Mark Zuckerberg, you're going to be worth billions of dollars, right? Because you're creating leverage. So it really worked beautifully. But I think one of the side effects of this education system we have is, it creates competition, right? It's all about, do I get 90? Am I number one? And kids are indoctrinated in it, right? So if somebody else has a better way of doing a certain math problem, and we don't want to learn it. At least a lot of kids don't, because they're like, oh, he's smarter than me. I'm the smartest kid. So they create feelings of jealousy and envy, and they push back anybody who's better than them, anybody who's doing something differently from them. So
Mhm.
instead of having admiration and appreciation for other people who are doing something better or different, they have envy and jealousy and all the negative attributes, right? So it's unfortunate, but a lot of people don't have that mind of appreciating others who are better than them. Don't have like for example, I don't know how I got it from, but like I remember as a 15-year-old reading books of great entrepreneurs, like the person who built the Honda, Toyota, like all the car companies, Ford, Henry Ford, Sam Walton, the Made in America story, right? That's the name of the book, because I was like, awesome. These people are interesting people, just like you and me, who ended up
Mhm.
doing interesting things. Like, I mean, they didn't come from rich families or, generational wealth. They were just regular people trying to make literally like coming from poverty in many cases or, middle class, and then somehow doing something unbelievably awesome and big, right? So I think it's unfortunate that the education system creates the opposite of that instead of like, instead of creating people who, so I'll talk about the attributes of the people who typically are win-win. They don't give excuses, right? You never hear them saying, oh, it's everything sucks, but wink, wink, it's that guy's fault or the
Yeah.
government's fault or the market's fault or the patient's fault. It's somebody's fault, right? They don't do
Mhm.
that. You never hear them playing this victim thing. You never hear them, being the victim or believing they are the victim. They're always like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to learn. This is an opportunity. Like you get fired, this is an opportunity for me to do something else. Maybe God is trying to tell me something that, hey, this is not right for me, especially if it happens again and again and again, right? So they're always looking for the silver lining. They're always looking for, how do I take, so in their word, the word failure doesn't exist. The word, it's not failure, rather it's, what can I learn from it? So either it's I'm learning something from it or I'm winning. Those are the two ways they think. So and also they're kind of abundance minded people too. They don't believe that for me to win, you have to lose. Like, Ben, you and I have been working together. And then me and Gary work together. None of us believe that for Gary to win, you have to lose, or for you to win, Gary has to lose, right? Like, like you do something that's complementary to him, I do something that's complementary to you. So we all can win together. That idea that somehow there's a winner take all world. So they don't have those kind of ways of thinking. So I think if you have those negative mindsets, I think the first step is to kind of realize that's what's holding you back. Like those negative mindsets is why you are not able to grow, because always it's like I'm either a winner or I'm a loser, right? There's no loser. There's like winner or a learner. So if something doesn't work, you're learning from it. Winner, like no jealousy or envy, but appreciation and admiration. Those win-win people, you notice them, appreciating others, whether it's their own people or even outsiders. Hey, this doctor is amazing. He does XYZ better than I am. What can I learn from him? Let me call him. Let me ask him if I can come and shadow him, as opposed to, oh, I hate this guy. And, I don't want to, like, you get really negative feelings and thoughts, right? So it's just that idea that we all can grow. We all can, do better like this anyway. So that's my observation in over the last 25 years. They're just different people. And I don't think none of us are born this way. Most of the time we are like that, 10-year-old kid who's jealous and envious of the other 10-year-old kid. I was like that. I think even until I was like 18, I didn't want anybody doing better than me. I just felt threatened by them, as opposed to then the one thing that changed me is like growing up. My mother used to not only advise me and tell me, Naren, do this, do that, guide me and whatnot, but she would do that with my friends. In the beginning, I'm like, why is she doing that? Isn't that my competition? Like, why is she helping my competition? Then I realized the world is a big place. Like, there's no reason for me to get my satisfaction by seeing my friends struggle. That just is not, that's like, I'm going to be the, he's a dwarf, I'm a dwarf. We are competing about who's the bigger dwarf, right? As opposed to, I'm a giant, he's a giant. We are like trying to become even bigger. Again, I'm using the word giant, metaphorically, in terms of impact, in terms of whatever is important to you.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I've always been fascinated why people are so jealous of people that are more successful than you are at that moment in your life. I don't get it. I don't understand, because I look at successful people exactly how you mentioned, is from the perspective of let's learn from them, right? Resentment gets you nowhere as a person. Negativity certainly doesn't get you anywhere as a successful business owner. So I love what you said about that win-win positive mindset. The last thing here on the list here, Naren, is that you mentioned that successful practice owners, they focus on growth, right?
Yes.
So I've seen that, clients that have goals, and they remind themselves about those goals every single day, and they work towards those goals. You see those practices on a constant growth trend, right? Very little, well, the opposite of the feast and famine, right? Is
Yes.
They have regular, consistent growth over their careers. What are your thoughts about people that have that sort of growth mindset?
Yeah, that's a great question. See, growth mindset people, don't have, like, we all have problems, right? We all have employees leaving. We all have that nasty patient who writes a nasty, Google review. It just comes with the territory. Some group of people, the ones who are growth minded, it's like background noise. It's not their main storyline. For the ones who are not growth minded, it's an excuse, it's an explanation, it's why things suck. And if you talk to them over a 5-year period, the growth minded person might be running a practice that is 2-3 times bigger than what it used to be 5 years ago. The person who's not, still the same old stories, still the same old things. It's like depressing. Like, if you are a growth minded team member, you don't want to work for that second person. It's always, everything sucks, because unless you are a person who believes in, oh, everything sucks. I mean, what's the word? What's the phrase? life is a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? For the ones who says, I can do anything and I can make this year better than last year and I'm going to work really hard, that's what manifests. For the one who says, well, this reason, that reason, well, maybe next year, but not now, maybe next year, not now. That's what manifests year after year after year after year after year, they are stuck, right? So the question you have to ask is which life, because life is a choice. Life is not, what just happens to us. We can create it. I mean, this guy, Steve Jobs, whose father was, I think from somewhere in the Middle East, his mother was his 18 or 19-year-old, or very young, maybe even less than that, young student, and they get pregnant and they'll give up the kid. Like their parents didn't want him. And he was raised by some middle, like some blue collar workers, right? I mean, his dad was like a carpenter or somebody, who works with his hands. And I mean, they couldn't even afford to send him to a decent university. That's one of the reasons he dropped out. He's like, I don't want my parents, losing their life savings because of my tuition bill, because that's like 4 years of tuition is everything they have. Right. And he said, forget it. And after the first year, he drops out. And then he ends up creating this unbelievable thing that we can't live without today, right? Like his products are used by 2 billion people. So did he have anything extra? No, he was just like anybody else. He just overcame his his challenges. I mean, I think one of the biggest things he had growing up is like, even my parents didn't want me, so I am unwanted, right? That's the story he had. But I guess his carpenter dad and mom told him, no, we chose you, you are extremely wanted. We literally worked really hard to get you as our son, right? So it changed the way he started thinking. I mean, those little influences of, I know we all have people who touch us and change our lives, and then he changed the lives of billions of people, right? Just one guy. So the question, I think, is, doesn't matter what happened in the past, what choice are you willing to make? Are you willing to make these choices where you are becoming more growth minded? You are setting goals. You are not giving excuses. Are you becoming more win-win oriented, where you are not, have this envy and jealousy and all those negative feelings, but rather you appreciate people and learn from people who are doing better than you, maybe even partner with them. So let's say you are extremely good at something, but you're not good at something else, partner with them. That way you can help them with the things you're extremely good at, let them help you with the things that they are extremely good at, right? It just makes you start thinking differently. Anyway, so I hope this is a podcast that kind of makes you think. I bet there's a lot of you who already are win-win, already are growth-minded, already are doing the things I'm recommending here, but maybe even you can hopefully say, okay, how do I take it to the next level? How do I even think about this even more and work on this even more?
Yeah, absolutely. I love it, Naren. I think all those areas that those 3 areas that you talked about are quite fantastic. In terms of me as a business owner, I'm kind of taking some mental notes on delegation, win-win, and growth mindset, which I think any business owner can implement and find success. Now, finally, Naren, I know that we all know that you run a marketing company, and I assume that these successful practice owners, just like Equa and your team, they focus on delegation, especially on the marketing end of things. So I've always learned from you, Naren, that SEO-based marketing is sort of a great focus, simply because it provides a clientele with a marketing avenue that costs less than Google Ads or any other type of marketing. A lot of times a fraction of the cost of those marketing efforts. So if somebody is listening today and they're sort of thinking along those lines of, okay, I need to set some goals for growth, but I don't know how well I'm doing with my digital marketing, where do you suggest that they start with an analysis on that whole area of growth for the practice?
Absolutely. If you want to grow, doesn't matter in what area, whether it's marketing, whether it's revenues, whether it's your education, whatever it is. Number one, you have to take stock of where you are, right? You need to know where you are right now. Number two, you have to take stock of where you want to be. And then number three, you need to come up with the game plan on how do I get there. So this is where I am, this is where I want to be, then how do I get there? So I think the marketing strategy meeting is a great tool to figure out where you are with marketing today. We do a 6 hours worth of analysis. We find out how you're doing with all the things that Google cares about. We find out how you're doing against your competition, and we'll tell you what that is. And then, one of the things that I believe for every dental practice owner who's listening to this podcast, you should have a goal is you should dominate SEO. Why SEO, like, Ben alluded to, is a fraction of the cost of every other type of marketing. So to get a patient from SEO, if your SEO is doing really well, it'll cost you 20 cents on the dollar, 15 cents on the dollar versus Google Ads. So if that's your goal, one of the things we also do in the marketing strategy meeting is to give you a plan on how do you get into the top 5% who is getting 95% of the free traffic because you dominate SEO. So we help you we review where you are with digital marketing and give you a plan on dominating SEO within 12 months. The link is insuranceuntangled.com/MSM, insuranceuntangled.com/MSM. Book that marketing strategy meeting, talk to our expert, see where you are and come up with a plan and then decide what you want to do with it. And I urge you, right? Change doesn't take 3 years of thinking and planning. It takes a second. Somebody who's a criminal can say, you know what, from this minute onwards, I'm not going to steal. I'm not going to do any of those things I did. It only takes 1 second for that person to make a decision. Somebody who's struggling, who's just going around in circles and every year is the same as the last year, it only takes 1 minute to say, that's not going to be next year. That's not going to be me next quarter. This is what I'm going to do. This is the changes I'm going to make. And start small, right? Set small goals and then go from there. So hopefully you got some value from this. And if we can help you with marketing, insuranceuntangled.com/MSM, we would love to do that.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that, Naren. And as you know, listeners, just interviewing you, Naren, in general about just basic business questions, you have so many pearls and so many thoughts that would lead any business owner towards success. So thank you for today and sharing your feedback regarding delegation, win-win, and growth mindset. We really appreciate that. And then to all of our listeners, thank you for joining us today on another amazing episode of the Insurance Untangled Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to share this with your friends on social media. We also appreciate your reviews. So your reviews, any review that you give, hopefully 5 stars, will help other doctors find us. And then, by the way, don't forget to check out our website for future webinars, exclusive freebies, and other perks. And that website, as Naren mentioned, is insuranceuntangled.com. Until next time, we wish you the best of success.